Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to get into a topic that somebody had asked me the other day. We were having a general conversation, and the topic kind of came up with how the dynamic that's changed over however many years or in recent years, where how the family dynamic seems to be a lot less traditional or seems to not be working anymore with all of the divorces or non-marriages that don't even happen or don't take place. And 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 in general it just kind of came up like, is it worth it, or is the old ways dying out? Does it even make sense anymore? And getting into that kind of topic, and I don't know if any of you guys have pondered that question before, or you're just seeing the lay of the land in recent years and you're looking at things going like, why does everything seem like this all flipped upside down? Or does certain things make sense? Or how widespread is the things that you see, if you see that at all? Maybe you don't, maybe you haven't encountered that kind of stuff going on. But this particular person I was having a conversation with was just talking about how they see it all the time, where you know um everyone that they know seems to always be separating, or even if they're just on that dating level, they're in a long-term relationship and it falls apart after building stuff together or whatever the case is. And and pretty much what a lot of people are starting to come to realize when it comes to revolve around this topic is that the family dynamic is no longer worth the risk. What seems to be happening a lot lately now is you have a lot of people, and I'm not saying that this doesn't also happen on the females end, but because of the dynamic of the separation process in the United States, and how there's a lot there's a lot of situations where when it comes to finances or even control of people's kids, if they have kids together, is often the courts will favor the woman. There's a lot of men who are just getting to a point where they're bailing out of that whole process, and wondering to themselves, is it worth it? Which is why you have a large community of this pro man space or red pill space. And I know the red pill aspect of it sometimes gets a little extreme, but it's still meant within the same kind of context of pro man space. And I would definitely say to that, or at least my thoughts on that, is that it is definitely becoming, things are changing, and they're probably never going to go back to the way they used to be, but things are changing in a way where the that family dynamic's not worth the risk. What people have in terms of what they can lose is greater than the risk. I'll give you an example. It's almost like if, say, if you are at a basketball court and then someone says, "Listen, like a game show, we're going to give you $1 billion. You have 25 shots to try to make the basket. You're standing at the 3 point line. You have 25 chances to make the basket. All you got to do is make it once and you win $1 billion. If you lose, though, we take away your kids and you never see them again." A person will probably say, at least with a logical sound mind, would say, as much as those odds seem like they're in my favor, it's not worth the risk, regardless, because the cost is too high at the end. It's way too high. So it's not worth that gamble. And essentially what's starting to happen now in the family dynamic of yesteryears is it's just not worth it anymore, because of not just the way of the minds of how men and women don't agree when it comes to how things get handled or how things get settled, but the biggest problem is that the idea of traditional marriage puts so much power into the hands of the government that they can decide, depending on whether you maybe have enough money for a good lawyer, maybe you don't, or just in general, it usually goes in favor of the woman, even maybe if that shouldn't be the case. or just even the fact that society in general will not try to find out what's best for both parties, and it will just always end up usually going in a dynamic that's wrong. um when things fall to pieces, that being that the government has so much control, it really is one of those things that can go so wrong or so uneven or unfair that most people, specifically men, I won't sugarcoat it, most men in society are starting to really see that there's no point because it's not worth the risk. The gain is not worth the risk. So you see that dynamic happening a lot. And I think that that's just going to be the way the direction of the future just kind of goes in. And it's not a matter of even on the stance of the social dynamic of it between the man and the woman, whether people go whether it's right, whether it's not, or how things go, whatever the case is. Just the fact that things come down to how much control the government has becomes a problem in things remaining traditional. If the government was eliminated from the situation, it probably would then come more down to the social dynamic of, are men and women getting along? What are the mind games that they play on each other? Who's trying to get over who, and this and that? And it would just solely just be based on that. How is a person able to navigate the social game? Are they able to work things out? Are they not? But that extra component of the government being able to come into things and make it where they will take the kids away from a dad, or maybe in the reverse, if a mom is a good mom and the dad's a really bad dad, and the government could come and say, I'm taking, the kids away from the mom just because one person has more money to spend on a better lawyer or whatever the case is. It just, and I say that statement just to kind of be a little bit more fair, even though right now it's trending in the way that a lot of dads are actually being removed from the picture altogether. Um, Government being involved really changes the dynamic of it being something that's even worth it or even healthy. It can't be healthy when someone else has control over the fate of, your future or your family dynamic future, when it's not just you and the other party, and that's a problem. And I'd actually go as far as to say that the government likes the idea of having this kind of control, which is why the idea of traditional is still promoted in society, though they know that it's a broken concept because, like I said, it has too much control based on the government. So that way, a lot of homes are destroyed because of that. So that's just my thoughts on that. Like I said, within the conversation that I was having with somebody who started to question, is it even something that's worth it when it comes to that? And that was really pretty much my thoughts on that. If you guys have any thoughts on the issue or you experienced anything like that before, put your comments down below. But definitely, I think that that is where things are going, where people are understanding that because of the power of government being involved, it wouldn't matter whether your beliefs are that you want to, like you believe in marriage or you don't, or you believe in the typical family dynamic or you don't. The fact that government is involved in it automatically makes it something that a person is not going to want to be a part of. I guess you could say it's almost similar to, anyone can choose whichever religion that they want to choose. You can go to whichever church you want to go to. That's your choice. But now imagine government got involved and said, okay, well, depending on the religion and church you want to go to, we're going to have a say so on how you pray, how you go about it, because we got to put our thoughts in it. Then you would go and say, well, I don't even want to deal with religion then, if, or, in a public way, if it means that the government has to be the one to tell me which church I go to and how I do things. May not be the best example, but you get the point I'm trying to say. Something that's supposed to be between just two people and how they figure it out, once you introduce government into it, it changes the dynamic of it. It also changes the way people will decide how the flow of that traditional marriage or relationship will go. Because if someone's banking now on that the government will be on their side, it's going to affect the way they go about that relationship. They will have that feeling like I can pull away because I know that the government will be on my side and punish the other person, which then changes the whole incentive and dynamic of a relationship where it's almost like having a loaded weapon in the relationship. And like there's fear because they're like, I'm going to use this against you when I need to. So I think because of that reason, the traditional family dynamic is almost on its way to completely being out the door. I don't think in the US it's going to be something that recovers. People will probably, I think society will try to push it out there so it can be something that maintains, even though behind the scenes, the government knows that they want it to be there so they can control the family dynamics. They want to be able to break apart families and have that control. They like having that control because it could puts people into the system with things like child support and whatnot, and destroying a person who's trying to get their bearings. All of a sudden, they're overthrown with child support, maybe things where they can't see their kids and things of that sort. The government likes that kind of control. So they're going to keep pushing the narrative that the traditional family is a positive. But I think that as we move forward in time, people who are actually going through it or know people going through it or they're learning from the people around them are realizing that there's no benefit to that. That lifestyle has no benefit anymore. And so it's just going to push along this future that kind of goes hand in hand, funny enough, with the instant gratification of the new social media life that exists. And what's going to go hand in hand with that is going to, in addition, be um, not only seeking and searching for instant gratification through social media, like everyone already does now, but in addition to that, you're going to have the uh, fall of the traditional family because there's no incentive to do it. And also let it be known too is that a lot of people think that there's a lot of tax breaks and all this other benefit for that kind of dynamic. There actually it really isn't. It doesn't really work like that the way people might think. So there really isn't anything there other than putting the liability of your family in the hands of the government. That's the only really purpose that it serves. And for the government to be able to hold someone liable so they don't bail on the relationship and expect to just kind of get away scot free. The problem is that now, because of society, it's been weaponized, not as a way to protect the person who doesn't have anything. So traditionally speaking, it was supposed to be a thing where when women didn't work, if they didn't have anything, then the guy can't just run off and say, well, you're left with nothing. And now I'm just gone and that's it. But now in modern times, it has been updated for the purpose of these modern times. So the dynamic, the way it's being used now is by as it's weaponized, and the government knows that, and they actually like that that's the case because it gives them the chance to, when they choose to break up the dynamic of certain families, they have that choice. They have that choice to say if we want to break up a certain group of people's families or do we not. They have that full control, and so it's really giving them the control on how families function at the end of the day. So sometimes they may choose to completely destroy a family structure that maybe two people could be separate, but they're still going to try to be maybe highly functional. Maybe not on both parties. Maybe one of them is upset and doesn't want to be functional, but maybe the other one might say, well, I'm still going to do the right thing if they have power and say, I'm going to raise my kids right. I'm going to give them a future. I'm going to have a legacy. But by the power of the courts and by the power of the government, they have the ability now to say, okay, if that parent is going to be the good parent who tries to sustain a legacy, whichever one that might be, whether it's the mom or the dad, I'm trying to say it to not be biased, they can then say, the parent who's going to do the right thing, I know which one's going to do the right thing, and that's going to be the one I'm going to target to push away so they don't have a legacy and I can destroy that family dynamic. And that is essentially what government does now. So understanding that is why the family dynamic is probably never going to recover to be the same. And I rambled on a bit, but as always, you guys, Like, subscribe, share, comment, and be safe as always. I'll catch you guys in the next video.